Hello friends, myself Deepak Gupta, again signing in on this platform of CollegeDekho.com, a specialized platform for all college goers. And today we are picking one of the very important topic, that is budgetary control for the paper management accounting, or normally known as cost accounting for managers. So as discussed earlier in our topic standard costing, budgetary control and standard costing are the two essential tools which are used by all business executives for the purpose of planning and control. So before I move further, this point you should be noting today, that today we will be taking this session with the help of our notes, and this will be a theoretical session. In the second part, we will be picking up the practical part, one of the questions for flexible budget. But in this session, we will be giving you an outline of what is budgetary control, what it means, what do you mean by a budget, and how it is a useful tool for every business planning decision. So, as you can see in the sheet, budgetary control and standard costing, they are very important. They are essential tools for every business executive for the purpose of business planning and control. How this budgetary control works, that we tend to create certain budgets, certain pre-defined targets which should be achieved and achievable both. They are achievable, hence they ought to be achieved by the staff, and therefore it helps in performance control. As you say that if you don't have an objective, you don't have a way to go. On the same lines, we basically try to provide a budget, that is a path, that is a target to be achieved by the staff to achieve the overall objective of profitability for the business. And when the actual performance is created by the staff, the corporate sector, then we measure their actual performance with the pre-planned target, that is the budget. And if there is any anomaly, there are any differences, which we use the word variances, then they shall be analyzed for the differences, that why it is different, how and what is impacting their performance. It may be good, it may be bad, because if they are good, then such employees needs to be rewarded, which enhances their performances. And if there is a default, then the reasons have to be ascertained, whether those reasons are normal or abnormal. You cannot punish a staff for abnormal reasons. So therefore, when we analyze the reasons, then it helps us in properly analyzing the performance, and also in future upgradation of all those budgets. So, as the institutes, the standard institutes have defined, we should first understand the meaning of the word budgets. So, budget is what? A budget is a financial or quantitative statement. Financial or quantitative, they look similar, but they are different. So, financial में monetary aspects है, quantitative is just a number. So, for example, if I say that I will produce 100 units, then it's a quantitative statement. But if I say that the cost of one unit will be rupees 10, and therefore the total cost of 1000 units has to be 10,000 rupees, then it becomes a financial statement, creating having the quantity also. So, financial statement is more exhaustive, which is prepared and approved prior to definite period of time. यानी कि आप प्री प्लान तरीके से काम कर रहे हो. You are making a statement in advance before the period starts, so that it can act as an objective to be achieved. That as written during that period for the purpose of attaining a given object. ठीक है. ये बजट जो है वो इनकम का भी हो सकता है, इनकम बजट या प्रॉफिट बजट, एक्सपेंडिचर का भी हो सकता है, कितने लोगों को नौकरी पे लाना है वो भी हो सकता है, कितनी कैपिटल एम्प्लॉयड हो सकती है उतना भी हो सकता है. इट कैन बी रिगार्डिंग एनीथिंग. But because we will be seeing this paper from the eyes of the cost accountant, so when we come to the practicals, then we will be focusing more on cost budgets, that is expenditure budgets. And as you have understood earlier, cost is slightly different from expenditure. So we will be focusing on cost budgets primarily, not on income and other budgets. But that will be as we move on to the practical part. So with this discussion, you must be able to understand that budgets are set up in the light of past experience. यानी कि पहले क्या हुआ था, आगे क्या होने की उम्मीद है, that is what changes are expected to be happening in the future. तो क्या हुआ और क्या हो सकता है, उसकी बेसिस पर आप अपने स्टाफ को एक टारगेट देते हो विच शुड बी अचीव्ड, एंड देन यू मेजर आफ्टर द पीरियड हैज elapsed whether those targets have been achieved or not. Therefore, the actual figures will correspond to the budget unless and until there is certain very important or unavoidable reasons. So we normally presume that because we have understood the past very well, we have taken the lessons and we have anticipated the future to the best of our understanding. Therefore, until and unless there is any contingency or any unexpected change, unavoidable reasons, there will not be much anomaly between what you planned as budget and what you actually achieved with your performance. See? Therefore, as we see that this actual performance should correspond, must correspond with the budget. Therefore, the basic thing that we have to understand that when we make a budget, then we take optimum efficiency. That is the efficiency that can be achieved. We are not talking about the ideal capacity to be achieved. हम ये नहीं कह रहे कि अगर एक बच्चे ने 1 घंटे की क्लास ली तो वो पूरे 1 घंटे ही बैठ के पढ़ता रहेगा, कुछ 5 मिनट 10 मिनट 15 मिनट का उसमें कोई ना कोई लैप्स होगा, या कुछ ऐसी बातें डिस्कस कर लेंगे टीचर और स्टूडेंट जो एजुकेशन से या उस पर्टिकुलर टॉपिक से जुड़ी हुई नहीं है विद सो मेनी रीजंस. सो व्हाट नॉर्मली एक्सपेक्ट आउट ऑफ ए 1 hour क्लास, दैट इज कैन बी द ऑप्टिमम एफिशिएंसी. जैसे मैं अगर पढ़ा रहा हूँ तो वी नॉर्मली एक्सपेक्ट कि अगर हमारी फेस टू फेस क्लास है तो 1 घंटे के सेशन में 45 to 50 मिनट्स की आउटपुट जो है वो मोर देन एफिशिएंट परफॉर्मेंस काउंट कर सकता हूँ मैं. बिकॉज 5-10 मिनट्स का एक ऐसी चीज़ें हैं जो कहीं ना कहीं मिस आउट हो जाते हैं बिकॉज ऑफ वेरियस रीजन आइदर ऑन आवर पार्ट और फ्रॉम द स्टूडेंट पार्ट. But if somehow, so for some reason, there is an efficiency of only say 30 minutes, 35 minutes, which is less than what you expected, the budgeted part, then there has to be the reasons to be ascertained why that happened. So this is what the point is, that budgets are not based on ideal efficiency. They are based on the optimum efficiency which can be achieved. Hence, this is a very important part, optimum efficiency attained. Okay, so now moving forward, we can say that when we create a budget, because they can be, these budgets can be on income, expenditure, employment, and so on. So we normally defined budgets based on different criteria. The budgets can be classified, budgets can be made either based on the capacity or based on the coverage or based on the period or based on the conditions. What that mean? Now, first take an example of the capacity because this is one of the very important thing. तो अगर मैं इसको यहाँ प्लीज़ नोट कराऊँ तो ये जो पार्ट है ये बहुत इम्पॉर्टेंट है. कैपेसिटी वाले बजट जो है वो बहुत इम्पॉर्टेंट है और इसमें से नॉर्मली क्वेश्चन जो हम लोग डिस्कस करेंगे दैट विल बी फ्लेक्सिबल बजट. So flexible budget is more or less the sure short question of practical in the paper from the topic budgetary control along with any corresponding theory question. Okay. So if I see this flexible budget, just a moment. There is a some disturbance coming from the call. Yeah, sure, please. Yeah. So what is this capacity? Every industry decides that how much machinery it has installed, how much employees are there, and based on the machinery and the employees number, they decide how much units of the particular product can be made by them. So we use the word installed capacity or the maximum capacity. Now, if I say that the installed capacity of a particular company is say 1 lakh units, now the point comes that whether 1 lakh units is actually feasible. So based on the optimum attainable efficiency, if a company produce less, so what normally the planners do, they expect that if we can produce 90,000 units and we at the current moment are expecting to sell 50,000 units, which we presume that with few efforts there can be a plus minus of 10,000 units. So we presume that either if there is so much slump in the market, we may not be able to sell 50,000 units. So our sales may decline to 40,000 units or vice versa. If there is a great demand, then it will increase to 60,000 units. What is happening? that 90,000 was the 100% capacity, and you are expecting that it can be actual sales of 40, 50 or 60, and you presume that you will keep 10,000 units in stock. सो व्हाट इज हैपनिंग एक्चुअली कि आपके पास तीन ऑप्शंस हैं कि आप 40,000 सेल्स के लिए और 10,000 स्टॉक के लिए, तो 50,000 यूनिट्स बनाइए। सेकंड में 50,000 यूनिट्स सेल करिए, 10,000 स्टॉक के लिए, तो 60,000 बनाइए। और थर्ड ऑप्शन इज 60,000 सेल्स के लिए और 10,000 स्टॉक के लिए 70,000 बनाइए। तो what we are planning, or what I'm trying to say, that you have three objectives or three different options to produce 50,000 units, 60,000 units, 70,000 units to cover for your sales and stock requirements. So when we create the budget, we can make budget specifically for 50,000 units, 60,000 units, and 70,000 units. Or we just ignore it and we make a budget for the most optimistic production schedule, and that's it. You don't classify them for different variations in the output. तो आप अगर एक पर्टिकुलर आउटपुट के लिए, एक पर्टिकुलर कैपेसिटी ऑफ प्रोडक्शन के लिए बजट बनाते हैं, देन वी यूज द वर्ड फिक्स बजट. But if you make budgets based on different optimistic production schedules, then we can use the word flexible budget. Now I will again try to throw more light on this. तो व्हाट इज द डिफरेंस बिटवीन द टू? कि फिक्स बजट के अंदर जब मुझे अपने कॉस्ट की एस्टिमेशंस करनी है, मुझे सेल्स की एस्टिमेशंस करनी है, मुझे प्रॉफिट की एस्टिमेशंस करनी है, तो फिक्स बजट में मैंने उसमें क्लासिफिकेशन नहीं किया कि इनमें से कौन से आइटम आउटपुट पे डिपेंडेंट है, कौन से आइटम आउटपुट डिपेंडेंट नहीं है। अपनी बात को समझाने के लिए अगर मैं कॉस्ट का एग्जाम्पल लूँ, तो कुछ आइटम्स ऐसे हैं जो आउटपुट पर डिपेंडेंट नहीं है। आप यूनिट्स 10,000 बनाइए या 1 लाख बनाइए, you will expend the same amount, for example rent of the premises. बट अगर आप कुछ ऐसे आइटम देखें जो आउटपुट पर डिपेंडेंट है, फॉर एग्जाम्पल रॉ मटेरियल कंज्यूम, द मोर यू प्रोड्यूस द मोर इज द रॉ मटेरियल कॉस्ट. So when you are making a fixed budget and you are not correspondingly classifying which kind of costs are dependent on the output, that is the variable cost, and which costs are independent of the output, that is the fixed cost. See, then when you are making the budget, then that budget is applicable only for that particular output. And if there is a variance in the output, then that budget becomes useless because you have not classified it as per the data which can be varied. So what is the written here? A fixed budget is a budget designed to remain unchanged irrespective of the level of activity attained. ठीक है, but in case the level of activity is different from the level of activity for budgeting purposes, then the fixed budget becomes ineffective. Therefore such budgets are not used. But when we talk about the flexible budgets, that is why I have put the color red, because they will not be used. But it is the go, it is a flexible budget that should always be made. So we basically recognize the difference behavior between the fixed and the variable cost. That is, those costs which will depend on the output, that is the variable cost, and those which will be independent of the output, that is the fixed cost. So in relation to the fluctuation in the output or the turnover, okay, the cost can be easily ascertained. So basically flexible budget is designed to change in accordance with the level of activity actually attained. जो बनाया है इस तरह से गया है कि या तो आप कॉस्ट को क्लासिफाई कर दो, कौन सी वेरिएबल है, कौन सी फिक्स्ड है और कौन सी सेमी वेरिएबल है। ये बात पहले भी डिस्कस की थी हम लोगों ने और पहले सेशंस में कि जो कॉस्ट आउटपुट के प्रोपोर्शनेटली चेंज होती है वो वेरिएबल है, जो चेंज होती ही नहीं है वो फिक्स्ड है, और जो चेंज तो होती है लेकिन प्रोपोर्शनेटली नहीं होती वो सेमी वेरिएबल है। मैं इसमें एक और बात भी ऐड कर सकता हूँ कि फिक्स्ड कॉस्ट कॉस्ट टोटल अमाउंट कांस्टेंट है, पर यूनिट इट कीप्स चेंजिंग। वेरिएबल में उल्टा है, टोटल अमाउंट चेंज होती रहती है बट पर यूनिट कॉस्ट रिमेन्स कांस्टेंट। सेमी वेरिएबल में दोनों के कैरेक्टरिस्टिक है कि टोटल में भी चेंज होता है और पर यूनिट में भी चेंज होता है, क्योंकि सेमी वेरिएबल इज अ कॉम्बिनेशन ऑफ द फिक्स्ड एंड द वेरिएबल। सेमी वेरिएबल कॉस्ट में कुछ पार्ट वेरिएबल का है, कुछ पार्ट फिक्स्ड का है। दैट इज वाई Semi-variable expenses are further segregated into fixed and variable expenses. Further aggregated into fixed and variable expenses. Hmm? So, what my point of view is that when you classify the cost as fixed, variable, and semi variable, and whenever there is a change in the output or you expect the output to change, then you can always modify your existing budget as per the new level of the output. And that what budget will be useful. So we should always make flexible budgets, and therefore in practice only flexible budgets are made. Fixed budgets are made only in case of supplier where the output is fixed as per the contract. For example, those manufacturers who are making the goods only for a specialized customer. For example, if Varun Beverage makes products for Pepsi, then there is a mutual contract that how much quantity will be made. So there can be a fixed budget plan. Or those suppliers who are supplying goods to the military, then the military has pre-planned them that this is the order. तो अगर हिंदुस्तान एरोनॉटिक्स इंडियन एयरफोर्स के बिहाफ पर मिलिट्री के बिहाफ पर कोई प्लेन का ऑर्डर उसके पास आया तो क्वांटिटी पहले से फिक्स है कि भाई आपने 200 तेजस बनाने हैं. तो द क्वांटिटी इज फिक्स्ड, इट इज अ प्री डिफाइंड आउटपुट एंड यू हैव टू मेक द बजट एज पर दैट आउटपुट बिकॉज आउटपुट विल नॉट change. So only in defense contracts and only in those contracts where the output is prefixed as per the contract, we make flexible budgets. Otherwise, in normal business cases, we always make flexible budgets. And therefore, in the next session, when we will take up the question, then it will be based on flexible budget. So whatever question is coming in the paper, it is always based on the flexible budget. They're always based on the flexible budget. I hope that is clear. So, as you see here, the flexible budget may be resorted to in the following situations. In the case of new business, जहाँ output अभी fix नहीं है, सौ बहुत variations हैं, वहाँ पे करना पड़ेगा. Business is dependent on the mercy of the nature. मतलब वूल ट्रेड है, ठंड बहुत ज़्यादा पड़ गई तो डिमांड बढ़ जाएगी, ठंड कम पड़ी तो डिमांड कम हो जाएगी. जैसे दिल्ली के अंदर पिछले 2-3 सालों से ठंड बहुत ज़्यादा पड़ रही है तो वुलन्स की मार्केट दोबारा डेवलप हो गई है. तो कुछ साल पहले तक 2-3 साल पहले तक ठंड पड़नी बिल्कुल बंद हो गई थी, पीरियड बहुत कम हो गया था, तो दिल्ली से वुलन की मार्केट बिल्कुल लगभग ख़त्म सी हो गई थी. ठीक है. एंड थर्ड इज़ द लेबर इंटेंसिव मार्केट, जहाँ लेबर की बहुत ज़्यादा शॉर्टेज है लेकिन लेबर की ज़रूरत बहुत ज़्यादा है. Therefore, you try to make the goods as per the availability of the labor. See? So, second is as per the coverage. Coverage is which items you are covering. तो अगर आप एक ही बजट में हर तरह के आइटम को कवर कर लो, उसी में मटेरियल कॉस्ट, लेबर कॉस्ट, ओवरहेड कॉस्ट, सारी कॉस्ट या सारे आइटम एक ही बजट में कवर कर लो, देन वी यूज द वर्ड मास्टर बजट. And when we make budget specifically for each of the item, then we use the word functional budget. Then we use the word functional budget. So when I come here, what is written here? Functional budgets. What is functional budgets? They relate to the individual functions in an organization. For example, purchase is a function, so purchase budget. Now this purchase budget can further be purchase quantity budget and purchase financial budget, that is including the quantity as well as the amount. Similarly, the sales budget, only the quantity budget or the financial budget. Production budget, unit wise or amount wise. Utilization budget, cash budget. तो यहाँ एक पर्टिकुलर फंक्शन को, एक पर्टिकुलर आइटम को फोकस करके बजट बनाया जा रहा है. तो अगर कैश बजट है तो कैश बजट विल फोकस ओनली ऑन द इनफ्लोज एंड आउटफ्लोज ऑफ द कैश. So all non-cash items will be ignored from the cash budget. But when oppositely master budget, it is a consolidated summary of the various functional budgets. It is basically the total functional budgets joined together. And based on this based on this summary of functional budgets together, commonly known as master budget, we plan our budgeted P&L and the forecasted balance sheet. So what a large industry do, that they ask each of their department to prepare their individual functional budgets, and then the head office combines those functional budgets into the master budget, and that master budget is used to create the budgeted profit loss account and the forecasted balance sheet as per the targeted set by the business organization, which is later on compared with the actual. And if there are varies, then each of the functional budgets are analyzed to identify the reasons. Thirdly, the budgets can be classified based on the period. Based on the period. As per period, these budgets can either be long-term budget, that is the period is more than 1 year, or period is up to 1 year, that is the short. Because that is how normally we classify long-term and short-term. So if I come here, as per the definition, the long-term budgets are the budgets which are prepared for a period of more than 1 year. And short-term budgets are the budgets which are prepared for a period of less than 1 year. तो more than 1 year वालों को क्या बोला गया? Long term budgets. लेस देन विनर को क्या बोला गया? शॉर्ट टर्म बजट्स. ठीक है. तो जितने भी स्ट्रेटेजिक बजट्स हैं जैसे कि कैपिटल एक्सपेंडिचर, R&D एक्सपेंडिचर, दे विल नॉट गिव रिजल्ट्स इन 1 year. So hence they are always made for long term. But the items which in long term, if defaulted, will destroy the company, they will always be taken care in the shorter version. For example, cash. You cannot make a 5 year plan for cash because you will get out of liquidity very easily. Therefore, you always prepare cash budgets for a very short period. So normally cash budgets are made quarterly. In small companies, it can be half yearly, and in very big companies, it may be monthly or maybe in some cases daily. But the normal period is 3 months. That is, you normally make quarterly cash budget. And this one thing I am stressing here, that the budget period is not standardized. It depends upon the requirement of each and every company, depending upon the function performed, that whether they are short-term budgets or they are long-term budgets. So ideally, strategic decisions as capital expenditures and research and development, they will always be long-term because they will never give the fruits in a period of 1 year, because that is how the character of the expenditure is. Okay. Now the fourth classification, which is as such not important for the paper, are basic and the current budgets, but that is ignorable because that has no purpose to serve in our study. Now, when we understand this word budget, when we understood that budget will be used for planning and control of performance by the business management, we can also now understand very simply what is budgetary control. And once we understand this budgetary control, we will close this session, and then in the next session we will be focusing on the numerical aspect of how to create a budget, how to create a specific flexible budget. And to discuss in detail about all these things, you will have to join with our sessions on the platform CollegeDekho.com, and we hope to see you there. So, as per the definition, budgetary control is defined as the establishment of budgets. Now, what is budgets? We have discussed. How to make, we have discussed, and in numerical, we will discuss in the next session. Relating to the responsibilities of the executives to the requirements of a policy. What is it say? What the company wants is a requirement, and how they should behave is the responsibility of the executives. And the actual comparison of the actual with the budget results. So when you have made those budgets and after the period has elapsed, so you make budget in the beginning of the period, and when that period has elapsed and you have performed actually, then budgetary control is not just about the making of the budgets. It is also about the comparison of the actual budget, or I should say the actual performance with the budgeted performance, and then to secure the individual action, the objective of the policy has been approved or not, or achieved or not. That is, if there is a difference between the actual and the budget performance, then you will have to provide the reasons why the company policy should not be changed or whether it should be changed or not. That is, you have to use this knowledge of this performance and this variation to log in to make your future performance objectives. So basically what we are doing, we are trying to achieve the objectives with the minimum possible cost and with minimum variance. And that is what the salient features of this budgetary control are. So we can have a theory question in paper where we discuss what is budget, or we can have a question what is budgetary control, what are the salient features, what are its advantages, what are its disadvantages, and all those things can always be there in our paper, in our notes. Sorry. So whatever the questions can be in theory, our notes will give you the full-fledged data how to write them in the paper. So before I move on, we are talking too much positive about the budgets, or I'm saying that we have in a way justified the benefits of creating the budget, but there can always be certain loopholes, certain mistakes, or certain limitations of the budgetary control. So that what we also have to discuss, that what are the limitations of the budgetary control. So first of all, budgets are based on past performance, and you're anticipating the future based on past performance. But it may not always be true, because what has happened in past in some cases may be a past, and that may not hold true in the future. So therefore, budgets may not be true because they are based on estimates. Secondly, when we make fixed budgets, then they are rigid, so they are useless. Until and unless they are flexible, budgets normally are useless. Thirdly, budget is just a plan which has to go through the physical efforts of the executives. So unless and until they are convinced about the budgets will be useless. And therefore, staff cooperation is the key. Until and unless there is staff cooperation, the budget will not hold true. So if budgets are used as a stick to get performance out of the staff, then they may not cooperate, and the budgetary control will become useless. Okay? And some people say it is quite expensive because you first have to create, you first have to arrange the past data, you have to anticipate the future, then you have to report it, you have to incorporate it in your budgeting, and that is quite an exercise which will cost money. And the benefits, or I should say the cost benefit ratio, may not hold good in favor of creating budgets. Some people say, as per the cost benefit analysis, these budgets may not be of much help. So some people ignore creating those budgets. So I hope we are able to understand what is a budget, what are the different types of budget, what is budgetary control and its advantages, and few limitations. So before I close on this session, I must underline this fact that whenever we are talking about budget, we are saying that we are reviewing our past performance, we are taking data from our past, we are anticipating our future. So, based on the past performance and expectations of the future, we are trying to create a path and the objective. But some people say that whatever has happened in past may be defaulted. So if you keep on carrying out those data, and if until and unless you have a fresh approach, you will not be able to grow because you are pursuing a policy which you didn't realize was wrongful. So some people believe that each year's budget has to be perceived, has to be pre-seen as a fresh opportunity. That is, you don't have to analyze the past data, you should only anticipate the future. So when you ignore the performance of the past and you start budgeting fresh based on the future anticipations, then we use the word zero-based budgeting. It is though quite expensive, but it just helps you that you don't carry forward your past mistakes again and again. So that is what you call the zero-based budgeting, and it is a very important topic in theory in the paper मैनेजमेंट अकाउंटिंग तो क्या लिखा द प्रोसेस ऑफ बजटिंग स्टार्ट्स फ्रॉम द फिगर्स एंड परफॉर्मेंसेस ऑफ द पास्ट एंड ट्राइज टू improve upon them. So last year's figures act as a basis, which may sometimes be wrong to start with. So the company should not just always follow the existing programs, but they should also review whether these existing programs are appropriate or not. Therefore, we use the zero-based budgeting, which is to revitalize the process of the budgeting, and that is the budget start afresh with no prior setups, and hence No prior mistakes are repeated. So, as they say, don't judge a person by his past mistake. Similarly, don't create your future just based on your past performance. So, companies, when they believe that there is a quite dramatic and drastic change in the anticipation for the future, for example, in today's world, we are having a digitization. We are having a wave of digitization. First, it came in the case sector of money. So, if the founder of Paytm could have thought of the past performances, then if he would have never thought of creating the concept of Paytm. So he started afresh and created a new venture which just changed the concept of payments in our country. So similarly, there can be so much entrepreneurs, the Apples, the Mark Zuckerbergs, they have thought out of the box, or I should say, they have created a zero-based budget. They have not think of the past. They are creating future with a fresh perspective, and that is what zero-based budgeting is all about. I hope the session was knowledgeable and interesting to you, and I hope to see you again. Thank you very much. This is Deepak Gupta signing off.